there are roles here in Europe. Who's going to have that exclusivity over Disney Plus? And I think what Netflix has done really well in Europe has been those telco, pay TV and cable relationships. And I think Disney will be naive to think that it can do it on its own without any form of partnership, given the relationship, going to your point around connectivity. So we talked about Orange. Could Orange Group do a group-wide deal with Disney? Vodafone. And I know all of these companies are talking to secure Disney right now, because that would be a big coup for their own convergent strategies.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Telecoms.com podcast. This week I'm hosting as Scott is sunning himself in the Canary Islands. And we've actually got a new... He actually has.
Really?
Yeah. He's been sending photos through of his work area, which is like a balcony with views of mountains and the sea.
Yeah, it's really
stuff.
obnoxious.
Yeah.
It's not good
I haven't
enough.
seen that.
Yeah. Well, he
we'll
sent the exact same photo to me and Ian. Monday morning it was bloody miserable as well.
No wonder he hasn't replied to my invoice.
Well, we better talk about the guests then. Actually, we got Ian, as always, from Light Reading, and this week a debut appearance on the podcast. A bit of a fanboy. It's Paolo Pescatore of PP Foresights.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to finally have broken my virginity and coming on this podcast. So I'm very much looking forward to it, and I've brought a welcoming gift
and donuts.
I thought it was a podcast tradition to bring them along, but it looks like half of them have gone already, Jamie. So I don't know.
We should make it a rule that guests have to bring something.
Yeah. Well, I used to bring some sort of snack every single week, and Pierre told me off because the paper packaging was.
Well, but at least these are not crunchy, so that's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in.
Before we get too far off route, let's start with the topics. So we're going to be talking about Orange as a business. We're going to be looking at basically their convergence strategy, I think is the fair way to say it, and also what they're looking at in terms of enterprise. That's a big growth market for them. Then we're going to have been looking at your specialist topic, content, because there's a big launch on, 2 months away now?
Yeah.
2 months away with Disney Plus. And then finally, it wouldn't be fair if we didn't bring up Huawei. So we're going to be bringing up Huawei.
Really?
Only briefly, though.
And just a bit of housekeeping. If you are watching this on video via the site or YouTube, you can download it on any of the podcast apps and iTunes, and vice versa. If you're listening to it, you can download the video. So there we go. Okay,
And don't forget to like it.
and don't forget to like it.
Yeah.
Subscribe.
Just offering to give away free
retweet
things.
it.
Yeah, if you retweet it, you get a free donut.
Exactly. We'll send you a donut if you put a tweet up of us.
This is bad now. You can get all sorts of trouble with donuts.
Okay. Well, you got a big bit. You got a big expense account. I'll let you take care of that. Okay. Well, let's start off with Orange. So this morning we were taken to sit in front of a few executives, and they just basically gave us a wrap up of how the companies are doing in terms of the second half of last year. Nothing particularly new, nothing particularly revolutionary. They're going to be holding back a lot of their news for Mobile World Congress, obviously. I came out of it feeling quite positive, but I'll throw it over to you guys to start with. Ian, what did you take away as your number one from the meeting this morning?
Maybe, I don't know. You guys want to talk about convergence, obviously, and enterprise meeting. There was a lot in it. It was kind of like a sort of general status update on where Orange Europe is. So they had the head of Europe, Ramon Fernandez, and basically the CEOs from some of the big European businesses. And it's kind of, so there's a lot of sort of showing of slides that have come out in this strategy update they came out with in December, I think, called Engage 2025. And that's like the next sort of 5-year plan for the company, where they're going to go from now. And
because they just finished Essentials
so they basically
2020.
Just got through Essentials 2020. So it's, I don't know if that plan and what came out today, I suppose, is a mixture of kind of efficiency measures.
Yeah.
Because it's very hard, obviously, in the European region at the moment to find growth, very saturated market. there's a lot of demands on things like buying spectrum and building out new equipment for 5G services. So they need to kind of be as efficient as possible. So there's quite a lot of talk about things like network sharing and setting up tower cos. And then on the other hand, there was, where are we going to find sales growth? And hence that's where we kind of get into areas like convergence. So I think Orange, out of all the European operators, probably have been quite. I mean, Paolo's going to know more about this, but I'd say they've probably been more successful than the others in terms of pushing into that.
I think they're. I think worldwide, I'd say they're probably the best at it. To be perfectly honest.
Yeah,
nothing else to say.
They had quite an impressive figure for how much revenue now, which I'd not heard them come out with before. But 40% of revenue, right, in some markets is coming from, or is that across the whole of Europe?
No, European markets.
Yeah. So
I think I was at the event in Paris where they announced the new Engage 2025 strategy. So it was very much kind of reinforcing the messages that came out from that strategy and financial day. I think one of the most important aspects and comments I heard this morning, Ramon kind of reinforced the notion of convergence throughout the entire session. And that for me was interesting because we know as Orange as being arguably the benchmark for one of the most most pioneers, innovators in convergence all across Europe. And even the comment I believe he used was convergence is the jewel in the crown for Orange. I think the most interesting thing for me when you look at the strategy to date and compared to some of the other telcos out there, you look at Deutsche Telekom, you look at Telecom Italia, you look at Telefonica, and it feels like the strategy updates from rivals are very much mirroring what Orange has done over the last couple of years. But I don't believe there's anything new that Orange is doing now for the next 5 to 10 years. And arguably, Orange could take a far more aggressive and bold approach moving forward. And I feel it's missing a step by not doing that.
I think. I mean, an interesting point that they made this morning, which I had no idea about, and I need to chat with them actually just to make sure it is right. They said they first tested convergence in Slovakia 10 years ago. I mean, that just shows how far ahead of the trend Nokia actually is. I mean, and I guess this raises a question, and Phil from Strategy Analytics tried to ask it, and they didn't really address the answer, the question head on. Should convergence now be seen as innovative, or should it be seen as the basic foundation or basic building block of a telco? I mean, I'll throw it over to you guys. Is it innovative, or should everyone be doing it?
Well, it's not a question of being innovative. I've personally, as an analyst, long argued that any pure play provider will struggle to succeed, and irrespective of whether that's telco, whether that's media, whether it's pay TV or any other service. So I think it's all a question of how you bundle these services together. There's many telcos out there that position themselves as being convergent leaders, but very much a lot of these services are being sold as an add-on. And if you look at, the markets, particularly where Orange operates in, convergence, again, perhaps is ahead of some other countries. You look here in the UK in particularly, no one really owns convergence in the UK. Now, is it the lack of what's happening on the supply side? You only really have one true convergent provider from a network perspective, and that's BT.
Yeah.
And it's only because of the acquisition of the E asset, which it's still trying to integrate.
I mean, that for me isn't convergence, because you can't. I mean, in the consumer's minds, I still think there's a lot of consumers which think that EE and BT are completely separate organisations.
Of course. And that brings me on to my next point.
How can you do it?
So when you look at it from a demand side perspective, there's a lack of appetite for it, and the way it's being marketed and sold on the high street is very much as an add-on.
Yeah.
Again, arguably, the leaders of convergence in the UK is probably Sky.
Yeah.
Number one pay TV provider. They're selling broadband, number two, and now mobile.
But that BTE issue is massive because they're still, speaking as a kind of consumer of their products, I still get people as an EE mobile customer, but someone who buys BT separately from that, I still get people phoning me up working for EE saying, why are you with BT fixed? You need to switch. And I had a couple of emails about this Halo thing that we saw being announced, but there's very little kind of coordinated effort to get you to move on to that. And I suppose with Orange, they did a very good job years ago of kind of
Exactly.
phasing out that France Telecom brand that they used to use
Yeah.
for some of the fixed stuff, and it's all Orange now for
I
everything.
think
They don't have that kind of same
If
issue.
convergence is going to succeed, there has to be a single brand and a single
just gonna come
lead
to
of
it
the
again.
portfolio.
Exactly, and spot on. Network, brand, service offering. It's very clear. It needs to be consistent, and it's confusing. So BT, it was BT Plus. Now it's Halo, and it's just connectivity. There's no services wrapped into that. So there are important lessons that need to be learned in the way that Orange is executing,
Yep.
and moving into other services, which strengthens the overall bundle.
I mean, the great
Financial
thing,
services. Sorry.
yeah.
Go.
Well, I was going to say the great thing about Orange, and this is perhaps why they're so far ahead of the trend as well, is that they've been investing in the network for so much longer than anyone. Well, obviously everyone has been investing in the network, but if you look at the length of time that they've been investing in fibre products, it's so much more than BT in the UK. So they've got that fibre basis where they can say, right, fibre and 4G, 4G LTE connectivity.
Yeah.
That's a really good foundation to build on.
Which
And
will
now
make it easier to do certain things as well. Because I have a problem with this term itself, convergence, because it seems to mean different things. Because what we're talking about, I guess, is largely bundling of services.
Service
Whereas
bundling.
BT often, when you see Howard Watson, who's the kind of CTO or whatever his job title is now, but that's basically what he is,
CTIO,
something
yeah.
like that. He always talks about it meaning kind of technical convergence.
As a single network.
Yeah, so having a
Network,
single network,
converge,
and you don't have to
yeah.
think about that. And I agree with him. In future, I don't know how long it's going to be, but we'll probably just use a service and we won't know what the underlying network is. And sometimes it
agree.
might move from Wi-Fi to 5G, or it might go back onto this. And that's kind of a type of convergence. But what Orange is talking about is very much kind of bundling services. So the interesting thing for them is going into new areas now, I suppose, isn't it?
It's just a term, though, isn't it?
It's
I mean, convergence. You're converging the bills. You're converging into a single
Bundle of services through one bill.
It's multiply.
If you have the networks and you can offer all those services, and it seems like a no-brainer to try and offer them all to a customer just for defensive reasons, because then if there are companies that can't do that, then it gives you something to kind of lock customers in and to sort of reduce churn for one reason. So.
I mean, this is a great thing. I mean, and the one thing I've always struggled with BT is that realistically they should be running away with the connectivity market in the UK. I mean, you think of what they have. They've got EE, which admittedly is a different brand. I mean, why did they just don't drop EE and just call it BT Mobile? I have no idea.
That's a podcast for another day.
Or maybe EE is a better brand than BT.
Well,
I think it is.
That's the debate. That's the huge debate.
Yeah.
If you look at what they're doing with Halo, everything and the whole relaunch, everything is BT led right now.
Yeah.
You've got BT Sports. I think you need to go with the brand that they seem to be putting a lot of focus on. And at the end of the day, BT did acquire EE.
Yeah.
And I know there could be concerns internally that it may feel like
why not call
a
it
reverse
BTEE, which is the way a lot of people refer to it in the kind of industry. I know not the consumers don't.
Because
call
then
it that,
you'd have to do another brand advertising campaign.
You would, but even their stores now have both of them, don't they?
They
sort of
do.
one after
But they've
the other.
just done
like
the new
that.
BT logo, haven't they?
But,
So they spent a couple of million on that.
But this is the whole point.
Well, they love spending money on that kind of stuff.
But this is the point. They need to make a move towards that single brand because they're able to cut a lot of costs in the business even further.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing. This is where I don't understand why they're not dominating. I do understand, but they should be dominating this massive mobile network, which is significant. A huge broadband footprint, which is significant. 5 million public Wi-Fi spots, which is significant, and they have their foot in the content business. With the assets that they have, theoretically, no one should be able to compete with them.
Yeah.
Totally agree. The problem, Jamie, is the execution.
Yes, exactly.
It's always been the Achilles heel of an organisation like BT, and it remains so. They're slowly making changes, and there's a lot of challenges that still lie ahead with the business. But once they ride the storm this year, I think they'll come out the other side a lot stronger for it.
But what I mean, going back to Orange and Phil's question about what's kind of next in convergence, and is there still growth? I mean, what do you think, Paolo, about, because in markets like Spain, where it's very different from the UK. You have several companies there that can offer now convergence. Unless I'm getting it wrong, there are several companies that are sort of fixed mobile players and have some kind of TV capability. So once everybody can do it, it's sort of, there's less to sort of gain by doing it, isn't it? I mean, you have to do it, but You've not got a competitive differentiator anymore.
I think the competitive differentiator for someone like Orange, again, it will vary by market. The challenge you've got in Spain is that there's a flood of OTT video providers as well, which makes it hugely competitive. So I guess someone like Orange could come along and try to look to aggregate these services into one. No one's really delivering on that strategy. And I think what they're particularly doing well is trying to take this group ethos approach around banking and eventually energy, which isn't easy for everyone else to replicate. So even though the notion of convergence of bundling fixed in mobile, others can replicate. Moving into new adjacent areas will be extremely challenging for some, where Orange already seems to have a significant lead and early mover advantage. So that makes sense. And again, it varies by country. Even France, for example, there's still plentiful opportunities for growth in that particular market. And, they've been able to differentiate quite successfully with TV. I also thought, another standout from this morning were in some of those East European markets, given the penetration of TV. And, there was one particular market, I think it was Slovakia, where they got more TV subs than they do broadband. And I thought that was really interesting in that particular market. And of course, I think what they can certainly do with 5G, again, there's a number of avenues that they can do. But again, I think the challenge for Orange moving forward is going to be how to extrapolate the additional value in 5G, but that's going to be similar challenges for everybody.
Well, I think if you build, if you've got the building blocks of connectivity like Orange has in these massive markets, like the one thing I was quite surprised is how progressed their fibre rollout plan is in Poland. Although I had no idea that they had connected that many homes, and they were going to connect 5 million homes by the end of 2021, I think they said. Yeah. That's a remarkable number. Once you've got the building blocks, you can build digital services on top of content.
And you can also have the 5G traffic going over your own fibre network to keep the costs down.
And the security products they've launched, I mean, that's no one's really talking about buying VPNs or buying security products for your smart home. But as soon as the smart home becomes more prominent, I bet you that more consumers are going to start, saying, "Oh, I'll pay an extra £5 a month, so I've got a super duper firewall, or I got an amazing VPN or something like that." But they've already dipped their toe in. That's where I think building digital services on top of the foundations that is connectivity and content.
But is there an impact on, when you are just putting the fixed next to the mobile, next to the TV, the services that you might previously have sold separately for such and such money? I know one of the concerns has been that you might get some kind of discounting effect.
There will be discounting.
People expect it to be less than they pay for those. I mean, what has that had sort of an impact on ARPU though in these markets? Sort of driven it down, or?
I think even Ramon reinforced the point this morning in terms of the value they provide, and they've been able to increase the ARPU per user, which is naturally the case. Of course, if someone is only taking fixed line, and then suddenly they add on mobile, then that's additional revenue.
So it's the upsell that you
it's the upsell that you create from them, and I think the greater value is if you're able to maintain that relationship beyond the minimum period. So the longer they stay with you, the more value you're generating from that user. And that's the real value of convergence, because it lowers churn and increases the life revenue, whatever you want to call it, per user. And that's why Orange, perhaps, as the leaders in that particular area, because they've been able to bring new services to sell on top and add on as part of that bundle.
I think that, one of the interesting ones for me is this energy services they keep talking about. They mentioned it like 2 years ago, but nothing really came of it. And that's
Europe,
basically reselling energy services on, as a British Gas, for instance, was in this
why
market.
Not? It's just another.
It works,
it's just Let's be honest.
Makes some money.
It's just adding gas to your bill, electric to your bill.
And so it's convenient from a customer perspective.
It's all on one bill. Gas, electric.
The other interesting thing I thought they said today,
mobile. The only problem, the only caveat I must say, and we talk about bill shop.
Yeah.
When that household or that key decision maker in that household looks at that bill, £100, £150. Wow.
Yeah.
And that is a concern, because you've got it all together in one place, and it does feel to a certain element transparent.
Yeah.
Wow, that's how much I spend on all of these
I'd welcome
services.
that personally because I
Well,
know
some people
I know
don't.
it-
Some
I know
people
it-
don't. That's
Yeah.
just to play devil's advocate.
Yeah.
But I'm a big convergent multiplay believer. I've always been so. But I know that there are households and individuals out there who get concerned when they bring it all together. It's a lot of money.
But for me, that's probably the main issue at the moment is, especially with digital services, things like Netflix and Amazon that you forget you're even subscribing to them, and then occasionally
You
look at your
lose
bank
track
statement and
of
it's
how
like,
many-
there's £6 going out, or even some weird
Yeah.
thing that my son subscribes to on Google. Whereas if there was one company that you just get a bill and all this is on there, that for me would be one of the most attractive things about convergence.
It is
really.
alarming
Just,
when
I can see it all.
when
then.
you add up all the individual services that a household signs up to.
It adds
It's
up
a-
to quite a lot.
It adds
Yeah.
up to quite a lot of money.
But one of the interesting things I thought today was with the banking stuff, is because I don't know if they've said it before, but that issue of using the bank to kind of do handset financing and things like that. So you're trying to get some kind of synergies going on there, which presumably that is a competitive advantage, unless the telcos actually own banks and go into that business themselves.
I mean, that's the finance business. That's one we haven't really touched on for a long time here, but that is a remarkable business unit, especially when you look at Eastern Europe, because they have been talking about the number of Vodafone talk about this a lot, especially with Africa. You talk about the unbanked economy, like people who don't have traditional bank accounts. Now, its penetration of bank accounts over here is like 90% plus.
Yeah.
Eastern Europe is quite low. Then all of a sudden, if you can tie that into a mobile phone contract, it becomes, because they will be mobile phone subscribers. So add-on like M-Pesa is a massive opportunity out in Eastern Europe as well. I think that's a brilliant business. I mean, they've got some guts going into banking, but it seems to be paying off.
Well, there are kind of costs involved, and
Yeah.
it's a long drawn process in terms of getting a license and getting up and running.
They've been doing this for like 4 years.
But
now,
once you
haven't
go through the pain of it, and I think they've learned a lot in France, obviously, like you say, they've rolled out in Spain, they've rolled out in Eastern Europe. Obviously, they've got big, bolder plans to go further afield. That, again, it's very hard for rivals to compete with, given how long that it takes to get these services up and running.
But
And
it's a good fit for an operator in some ways. I mean, they're used to dealing with customers. They're used to running branches, which is similar to a kind of physical store.
Yeah.
That you
Well,
go
a lot
into,
of these
so-
people have a retail a lot of these telcos have a retail footprint already. So, and if more and more of customer relationships are going to be going digital, you got to figure out what you're going to do with this retail footprint.
Yeah.
And let's not forget, you've got post offices that offer telecom services. You've got utility companies.
I'm a
gas, electric.
customer of the post office.
Well, they're moving into telco space. So why can't the telco companies move into those areas?
John Lewis bloody offer broadband services.
I think those retail outlets are going to become like experience centres in the
That's
future.
exactly what they are.
Yeah, because the high street's basically kind
Dying.
of dead, isn't it? Apart from coffee shops and pubs.
But
charity shops, as
charity
well.
shops,
and letting agents.
and letting it. Yes, those things will survive, and then anything else has to kind of go like down an experience route. But
And pizza, there's
yeah.
fucking Domino's everywhere.
yeah,
But again, they're so important to have, a presence on the high street. Look at the debacle with Sonus and the software update of those devices.
I missed that.
And
I saw it and never
it's
read the
very
story,
hard
but-
then to kind of manage that. But at least having a point on the high street where you're able to connect with a customer, it's so important.
So what
moving
happened with
forward.
Sonus briefly? Just on a tangent. They cocked up a.
Yeah,
They
update.
basically said we're not doing software updates or anything that's like anything that was bought like pre-2013 or
devices,
something like that.
Okay.
But basically their argument is, we didn't design it to have this, to have
latest and greatest capabilities.
Yeah, they said basically they're turning around saying we can't embed all of these updates into the products. They weren't designed with that much memory in them.
Right.
So that's their argument. Which, believe it if you want, don't know. Right, I am going to take the opportunity to transition through to content now.
There was actually a transition here that if I can make it. I would
Donut.
like to try the Apple TV Plus thing, but I have a Samsung TV and it's only compatible on like a few 2019, 2018 models, which which really pisses me off because mine is like 2016.
Your
Hey, so stop being a cheapskate and buy a new TV.
Buy a new
I'm
TV.
like, on
I
what
have the same
grounds is it
problem.
not available on my TV?
Yeah, I've
you know
got
what I
the
mean?
same issue.
Well, it's the same issue.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
come
I don't
on.
know.
I have Netflix. I have Amazon Prime. Why
I can't get the
I have-
Eurosport app working on my Samsung TV, which is really annoying because the Australian Open's on, so I have to watch it on my phone or
tablet.
or tablet, which is not ideal.
Chromecast.
No, Apple TV doesn't Chromecast.
No, but
that would.
Eurosport, you could do a Chromecast or something of that nature. Yeah. Or the other look, Pierre. The simple answer is just go out and buy an Apple TV, my friend.
And one more remote and one more box. No,
Just replace your TV.
Or replace your TV.
Yeah, just replace your TV.
It's perfectly fine.
You know, get one.
I don't want it that bad.
Right, fair enough. Okay, so we are transitioning onto content now, though. So the reason we're talking about this is I will in a second. Pierre will have one as well.
Yeah.
I already had one. You had two.
It's my second one.
Nice.
So the reason I want to talk about it is Disney Plus. Now, obviously, Netflix is the dominant player on the SVoD in the SVoD economy at the moment. But Disney Plus has said last week that it will be launching on the 24th of March in Europe. And an interesting price point as well, I think. $5.99 a month, or €60.99. I think that was it, isn't it?
It's a week earlier than they planned.
Week earlier, and
Was it £5.99, £60 for a year?
Yeah.
And I think the euro equivalent could be maybe a euro more.
€6.99 or something like that.
Yeah.
But ultimately, they're undercutting Netflix by about £3 to £4.
Is Netflix that much now?
It's $8.99, I think.
Well, they're different
Oh, yeah.
price points based on whether you want the basic or the
$8.99.
premium version
right.
with 4K, all singing and dancing, and depending on whether you go to you get it bundled in with your broadband provider.
Yeah.
There are different permutations, so it's not quite as straightforward. But if you had to break them down, Disney
It's cheaper.
It's cheaper, and BritBox here in the UK and some of the others are cheaper compared to Netflix. Having said that, just to put it into context, of course, you know, if somebody wants to sign up to Disney, all you're going to get is Disney stuff. If you sign up to BritBox, you'll get a selection of content that's very much kind of UK created and produced. But if you have Netflix, you've got a broad range of content, which includes licensed third party, as well as all of their original content. So,
like horror films you won't find on Disney Plus. Yeah.
So they've
No, I'm
taken.
just thinking like
Well,
genres.
well,
You know, like violent films.
well, it depends. Like Minions could be violent depending on which way you look at it.
It's not just kids' films, though, is it? Disney. These
No, of
days,
course,
or-
you've got
No,
the
they're just Star
Avengers.
Wars.
Yeah,
exactly,
but that's
yeah.
you've got everything related to the Disney franchises.
But
Yeah.
there won't be
That's
like a
not Marvel, is it,
Tarantino
as well.
I think it's Marvel.
Yeah, it is.
Marvel,
yeah,
isn't it?
off the top of my head, yeah, Avengers and all that. Is that Disney? Yeah,
Yeah, that's all Disney.
it's all Disney. So
What about DC?
No. The DC universe is something new.
Wonder Woman and all that lot. That's
Yeah.
not Disney.
Yeah,
No,
Batman and all that.
Yeah.
That's not Marvel.
Right.
But
That's
I'm
different.
saying is like you're not
Right.
going to find an Irishman type of movie on Disney Plus. Is what I'm saying.
No, it's a different audience.
it's
Yeah,
a different audience, but you know, in time, you never know in terms of content and the way that you make them available. I think, you know, traditional companies. When I mean traditional companies, you know, the Disneys of this world and typically Hollywood has really struggled to connect with users in what's happening in terms of IP distribution and consumption on across all of these devices. So they've been very much late to market. Netflix for sure has a huge lead over everyone else, and they've got, you know, a wider range of content. So I firmly believe moving forward, Netflix is still the number one position, a prime position to cater for the household's needs. However,
You say that, though. The opening 3 months for Disney was very, very positive.
the only reason why it was positive is that they did a really good job in marketing the service prior to launch
Yep.
and in the US. And for the US, you just have a swarm of OTT providers out
Yep.
there. And Disney in the US, not only through Disney Plus, they have the other assets through ESPN, Sport, and Hulu. So combining those services all together, I think it was somewhere between $10 and $15 a month from memory.
Well,
it was kind of a no-brainer.
If you actually had a look at the download numbers for Q4, Disney was the second most downloaded app in North America or something like that.
To TikTok.
Disney, sorry?
Well, just behind TikTok or
Something like that. I think TikTok was up there.
How many subscribers then does it have now, Disney Plus?
Um,
It's only in the US at the moment.
it's only in US.
They
yeah.
were talking about is it 30 million subscribers and 50 million in revenue in the first 30 days.
Wow, $1 million a day.
Yeah, but
they'd already
really
signed,
high numbers.
they already signed up a lot of people into, you know, beyond just that 1 month as well. So they've done a really good job.
Yeah.
The challenge will be kind of maintaining that base.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Moving forward. But they still have it's very early days, and it serves a need for a specific audience, and that's fine. I think the challenge they have here in Europe is that Netflix has already established itself. Equally as well, you can already get Disney content, Disney programming in other means.
Yeah,
So-
but not for long when they take it back.
Well, let's see what happens once they start pulling their own programming off some of those existing carriage deals. That's when we may see some churn. But I firmly believe, you know, Disney Plus serves a purpose
Yep.
alongside some of the others.
I mean, one of the things you've always got to remember about Disney is this is literally one of the most
Paolo
recognised.
finish.
Yeah, well, no.
No. I'm adding to the points.
Let
Adding to the points, but about momentum. It's one of the most powerful.
Ian wants to say something as well.
Well, I'm just a
It's
bit
one of the
worried.
most powerful brands in the world
Well,
and most
well,
recognised.
I was going to get to that,
I'm
but
a bit worried. Is my edition of Thor Ragnarok on Amazon Prime going to disappear? And if so,
Probably,
hang on a minute,
yeah,
I bought
actually,
that for £6 or whatever it was.
No,
if you
no.
bought if you bought something outright, it's
Right.
yours to keep. It's
Then
yours.
it's yours to keep. But
own.
any
But-
rental stuff would
Yeah,
could
any
go.
subscription based, given what Disney has done in pulling its own content off Netflix, we'll see more of that. Not only from Disney, but also from some of the other giants as well.
I mean,
that
this
go
is-
more into the OTT space.
This is where I think Netflix is gonna not necessarily struggle, but it's got to not only continue the momentum that it's generating in original content, but it's got to replace the stuff that it's going to lose. So it's not only losing the Disney stuff, it's also losing, like, The Office is owned by ABC,
NBC.
NBC.
Sure,
Friends
Peacock,
is owned by, I think that's NBC as well.
Right.
And then just loads of random stuff, like HBO is pulling back all their content. So there's a lot of big titles that have been pulled back.
The big concern for me in all of this are consumers.
Yes.
Because it's an absolute minefield. There are so many providers out there launching OTT, SVoD, streaming video, whatever you want to call it, that for them, all they really care about is actually watching that TV show or movie. And, you know, we're already getting to a point now where they're looking for something with the service they've signed up to, and it's not available. And that's the worry for me. And I think, you know, someone needs to come in, look at what's happening, and just remove all of that fragmentation out there. And, you know, I hate to bring it back to a telco, but arguably there's a role there for a telco to come in and say, look, we'll try and do all of these deals with all of these various providers.
And just aggregate.
Well, even forget about aggregation, but it's actually aggregating. Break down all of those barriers. You're not presented with 20 million apps. Just search for the content that you want to watch.
Aren't they doing that already to some extent? Like
Some are, but they're very limited. You don't
Right.
have them all. You either have one, or you have two, or you don't
Yeah.
have the other one. So
The problem is a lot of these OTTs don't want to hand over the customer experience.
Yeah.
Like, Netflix has spent a lot of money, and in all fairness, right, the Netflix app is really good. So why would you want to hand over that customer experience
you
to
to stay in
someone
the
else to
ecosystem.
But
aggregate?
the problem is now, some people are now spending 10, 15, 20 minutes searching
Yeah.
the Netflix system and still not finding what they want to watch.
The
because of that
recommendation
time.
engine needs to improve.
Needs to improve.
I tell you what's horrendous is the Amazon Prime one.
Oh, Amazon Prime is awful,
It's
isn't it?
I don't know, like,
I
haven't they had
hate
enough
it
complaints?
so
It's
much.
so terrible.
It's fair to say...
I think
the-
they've both
yeah,
got like pros and cons personally.
Well, it's fair to say the Amazon Prime video needs to be significantly updated, and particularly now that they're offering more live sport,
Yeah.
integrating live sport in the existing UI.
But they do have a
just doesn't-
sports thing up the top.
it's all
Yeah,
like
but it doesn't-
multiple...
But it still doesn't work. The Premier League on Boxing Day.
10
if you want,
thumbnails of the same thing.
yeah, and if you wanted to watch the match that was live now, you had to scroll across. It should
Yeah.
have just popped up right
So
in front
what
of
I
you.
don't like about Netflix is that things start playing as soon as it comes up. Which
Oh, what, the trailers?
Yeah, the preview.
Oh, that's all right.
That's a
I quite
brilliant
like
feature.
that.
well, it might be okay, but if you're at home and you just want to kind of scroll through stuff to see what you want to watch later, and the kids are around,
It's gotta be
and-
quicker.
You need to be quicker.
because it will come up with things sometimes that are like V-Wars for something, which they're promoting over Christmas, which is basically a vampire thing. You don't really want your kind of 8 or 9-year-old
Kids
sort of, as soon
watching
as you
that,
switch
yeah.
it on, it starts playing immediately, and you can't get out the damn thing.
Yeah.
And it's sort of still going on when you're looking for other stuff. You know,
Do you
it's
know-
quite irritating, I find. But
Voice.
I know, each to his own.
Voice is the future.
Yeah.
And that breaks down all the barriers rather than having to text.
And
Takes
The,
or
oth-
scroll
the other
across.
thing that will massively help is, like, so say your eldest son, whose Netflix profile does he use?
well, there's two. There's kids and me, basically, which I think is fairly standard, isn't it? You get.
But then does
well,
your
he'll
oldest
use.
son?
I mean, they both use both, to be honest with you, because a lot of the stuff in kids is quite babyish, yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff in the kind of full range includes some kids stuff, but teenage stuff as well, and
Yeah.
you know, action movies that are
PG-13
okay.
stuff.
But then it's got like something they want to promote at the moment, like V-Wars or
Yeah.
Lost in
zombie
Space.
something. Then
And,
we'll just sort of-
and that's really good, actually, the profile segment.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's something that, you know, my particular household, we have four.
But like you said,
we
the
have four
recommendation
profiles, and
engine's not
it
good.
works out really well. But I agree with the recommendation.
But this is why but if you've got 4 different people, so your wife and your 2 sons and yourself using the same profile,
Yeah.
all with different interests, and that's why the recommendation engine, or theoretically the recommendation engine, won't be refined to you.
Yeah.
And because you've got 4 different types. You know, you've got your youngest son searching for stuff like that's appropriate for 8, 9-year-olds. Then you've got a
Yeah.
teenage interest. Then you've got your wife's interest, and then your interest, and all of a sudden
Although I
this
use it-
recommendation engine is going.
But
What
I
the
use
hell
it
is
mainly-
going on?
Yeah.
But I find that when you go into it, I mean, I don't think the recommendation engines. I use it mainly, to be honest, with Netflix probably, and I still get things that are flung up as soon as I go in that just seem to be their latest things they're trying to promote that I'm
Yeah,
not necessarily
yeah.
interested in. So, and then there's a lot of these are the thing they seem to be doing at the moment is either the top 10 on Netflix in the UK at the moment.
Oh, yeah,
and
or near
very
you,
few
yeah.
of them are like any good. That all things that I necessarily want to watch, but
I
sometimes
find
they
it
are,
okay. I get what you mean about the newest thing. Obviously, it's
I know why
just
they
the
wanna do
newest
that.
thing. Yeah. They want to
Um,
promote it, but I mean, I'm finding it's getting better with because I live on my own. I am literally the only person that's on that Netflix
Yeah.
account, and I'm finding it is getting a little bit better.
I've gone one step further in out. So I've got one for myself, one for the missus, one for the child that's over 10, and then another profile for the 2 younger children under 10. So I'm able to break the content for the 2 of them. But then what happens
You've got
is...
too much time on your hands.
Well, no, I don't watch it, even though I've split it out deliberately. But what I have found...
Sorry, running around. You want to be doing more work and watching less TV.
We haven't got onto all the live sport and what Amazon might do with live sport. That's another discussion as well. But what I find as well, like when the kids are together, they always defer to the eldest profile and end up watching it all together that way. But
So your 2 youngest kids are watching inappropriate
V-Wars.
content and could grow up being sociopaths.
potentially, yes. But bringing it back to around Disney Plus, what's interesting about Netflix is the data that they have on you, and they will know whether losing the Disney programming is a huge blow or not.
Yeah.
And if it is a huge blow, they know exactly the type of content you're watching, so they can start preparing for that by investing in those types of shows that will connect. And that's the interesting thing with TV, and that's why everyone is moving towards that whole streaming battle, because it's being able to understand the user in a way to serve them for the future.
It's not just marketing. It's not just the recommendation engine. You're right. It is, I know that there's 25,000 people in the UK who would like this very niche bit of content that might cost me £100,000. Okay, fair enough.
So-
I'll invest into it. I know there's 1.5 million people who will like this bit of content that'll cost me 50 million. Then you can start making better decisions on creating content.
And what's interesting to me strategically this week, Sunday, Sky extended its relationship with Netflix.
Yeah.
Swisscom this morning extended its relationship with Netflix. All in the same week, Disney Plus announced formal arrival into the UK towards the end of March.
And
So
we're
who are they
searching for
gonna
results for
partner
Netflix
with?
too.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
and the results as well. So I think it's really, really interesting that people, Netflix is clearly protecting itself and relying heavily on telco relationships. So with that in mind, in the context of what's going on, I've just come back from the US, having been at CES and doing a roadshow around California, and you just can't ignore all of the advertising that's going on around Disney Plus on Verizon Wireless, which is exclusive. There are roles here in Europe. Who's going to have that exclusivity over Disney Plus? And I think what Netflix has done really well in Europe has been those telco, pay TV and cable relationships. And I think Disney will be naive to think that it can do it on its own without any form of partnership, given the relationship. Going to your point around connectivity, so we talked about Orange. Could Orange Group do a group-wide deal with Disney, Vodafone? And I know all of these companies are talking to secure Disney right now, because that would be a big coup for their own convergent strategies.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Okay.
Here we go.
Well, there
all
we
done.
go. Convergence and content all sorted. We're probably running out of a little bit of time now. So we're going to move on to the final topic, which is an obvious one, but Huawei. So, Ian, I'm going to throw the ball to you. There has been a minor development, or rumours of a minor development.
Yeah, I don't know
roll.
if it's as big as I
PF,
thought when I looked at
drum
the
roll.
story. But
Kick
well,
off.
as we always talk about it, which is Huawei's sort of one of the things is Huawei's role in the UK's 5G networks, which is controversial because the US is trying
Because
to
they're
obviously.
spying on us.
The US thinks they're spying on us and they're a security threat and a general bad actor, and they kind of want them kicked out. And UK operators say that's going to be hugely disruptive because we already use a lot of Huawei equipment and they're really good. And obviously Huawei doesn't want to be kicked out either. And the Chinese are kind of sort of lobbying in support of them to some extent. So, but there's reports going out today that the decision's been taken and is due to be announced. There's nothing officially from the government yet, but what these reports are saying is that there'll be, and it's not a huge surprise, they'll basically be allowed to carry on providing radio equipment, but they won't be allowed to go into the core network, which is the more sensitive bit that everybody's kind of mainly worried about from a security perspective. And if that's right, then it's kind of minimal disruption for the operators, because they all have it in their radio networks, but none of them have it in a core except BT, which is, has already said it's trying to sort of remove it from the core network. And then I suppose if it is confirmed,
it's not really where they want to play either, is it?
no, it's not where the money is. So
most of the money is in RAN,
in RAN,
RAN and,
that's where the spending
and
goes.
transmission.
Yeah. But if it's confirmed, then I guess the next interesting thing is what happens next, because the US has sort of been running around, I think, saying that making noises about potentially, damaging the relationship, and that's really important because the UK is part of this Five Eyes sort of spy club that also includes Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. And so, as a big ally, they're obviously really keen to see the UK kind of do what they've been.
Well,
asking.
arguably the US's biggest ally.
Argue the US's biggest ally. So if they can't convince their biggest ally, then who can they convince to kind of get rid of Huawei? And then on the other side, you've got, the Chinese, if that's the decision that's been taken, they'll be delighted because, as you say, they don't really see much in the core anyway. The money's not there. So there's no danger of it upsetting them. It's just what Trump does, I guess. Next.
I don't think they care. Yeah, they don't really care that much about the cause. Well, obviously they do care because money's
They'd
money.
rather see no restrictions at all, I'm sure. But this is probably what they were expecting or hoping for. It's kind of the best they can expect.
Yeah.
And it's just, I suppose it's what Trump does next. Is it a bluff, or are we going to see some kind of? It hasn't been confirmed yet, so it might turn out to be wrong. Who knows? But it's a Reuters story originally, so it's a reputable news outlet.
Inside sources.
Inside sources they're citing, and that's pretty much it. But we had to mention it.
Yeah, I had to mention it. Realistically, it is big news. If it actually goes ahead, and they're given the AOK, that is something we've been talking about for 12 months. It is massive news.
But that's the point. We've been talking about it for so long now. We need some form of conclusion, and
100%.
it's been dragging on for so long, given the political climate here and of course across the pond. So, and I think importantly as well, ahead of Mobile World Congress, I think it's highly topical, and I think it's important that there's some form of closure and the telcos can all move on and rapidly deploying the networks. And I think it's healthy as well to have that competition in the marketplace, because it's one of those few segments when you look at the complete value chain where there's so few providers competing.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to have a healthy, vibrant.
Which came up at the Orange event today, actually. Some talk about supplier.
Well, someone was headline chasing, basically.
Someone was headline chasing, but Ramon Fernandez, the Orange CFO and head of Europe, did make the point that it's important to have kind of supply diversity, and if they see one sort of, I mean, he wasn't mentioning names, but if they see restrictions, then it kind of drives them down to a couple of big suppliers, really. So that's something a lot of operators have been saying.
The interesting takeaway from this is that there was all the Merkel comments from last week, where Angela Merkel, the German Chancellor, basically turned around and said, "Nah, we're going to kick this. We're going to kick our own Huawei decision down the road
until after March."
Until after the EU summit in Brussels in March.
Yeah.
Will the UK, assuming they are making this decision, will the UK making a decision positive for Huawei? Say, would that buoy the confidence of Germany, and the Italians are still hovering on the fence. The Spanish haven't said anything. The French haven't. Well, the French have been and ahhing. There's supposed to be EU rules coming out. Yeah. There's so many markets where they haven't actually said anything.
Everybody's going to be so keen to see what happens here, because they'll all be saying, well, what happens now with the US? Are they actually going to do anything in response to this? Yeah. If it's confirmed.
I think it could be. I mean, the decision could be a domino. I think the UK is the first domino, and it's really gonna set everything off around Europe.
Yeah.
Because as much as everyone hates us for Brexit, I think the UK is still influential. Yeah. It's still a very, very influential voice.
One of the few markets in Europe to have all providers launch 5G as well, and the ramp up that's going on in fibre. Yeah. So. And make no mistake about it, Huawei, we all know, is on a huge charm offensive. And to your point, Jamie, if this is indeed true and the domino effect, Huawei's going to jump on it in a big way, even in Barcelona, when all the regulators are there, all the key political figures will be watching closely what's going on, all the key execs are there as well. So it could be, for that very reason, it could be a very interesting show.
No, I agree with you. Okay, well, we'll wrap it up there. Iain, thanks for coming in. Paolo, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome back.
Oh, good.
Thanks for your donuts.
As long as you bring donuts, yeah.
Or should we go something a bit stronger next time? Or
well, you can bring craft beer.
Oh, there we go.
Beer's always good.
Beer's always good.
Thank you, Pierre. Your contributions are invaluable as always.
Thank you.
And and we'll wrap it up there and see you next week.